welcome to our first ever podcast, Freight and Commodity Talk. If you don't know me, my name is Zoe Upson and I'm the founder of Freight and Commodity Talent. Today with us, I'm super excited. We have a very special guest, Naz Furqan. He's a CFO and accomplished finance executive. Naz is a seasoned chartered accountant with a wealth of experience in the shipping and commodity space. He is also an ambassador for automation and transformative finance within the industry. So as our business has grown in the UAE, something we've really witnessed is a number of businesses relocating and setting up in Dubai. We've seen 100 hedge funds set up in DIFC. We're expecting 1,000 brokers to be coming out here in the start of 2025. Now, obviously within the industry, compliance is a huge topic. I get phone calls and messages about it all the time. And for the last, I would say, 9 months to a year, Naz has been invaluable to FACT. He's guided us through all the regulatory landscape. So we just wanted to run through today some of the questions that I get. There's a lot of grey area and we would like to sort of make it a bit more black and white for people who are listening. Okay, so Naz, given the significant growth in the financial services sector in the UAE, especially post the FATF Grey List removal, what have you seen as the most notable changes in the industry?
Thank you very much for inviting me to your very first podcast,
Thank
Zoe.
you.
And I'd also like to mention, welcome to Dubai. I mean, I know you've recently moved in. We'll cover that aspect probably slightly after the key topic.
Yes.
Compliance over the last 3 to 4 years, based on my experience, has transformed significantly.
Yeah.
Now, predominantly, it was all about increasing scrutiny related to AML, anti-money laundering, as well as CFT, CTF, counterterrorism financing. And because of certain gray areas around these key elements, UAE was actually put on the Financial Actions Task Force Grey List in 2022. Soon after that, a sequence of events and regulations and legislations were basically passed to increase the monitoring, tracking, and the whole environment around compliance and transparency around financial transactions. Yeah. So what resulted was a whole heap of tightenings across the financial sector, across trade counterparties, across brokerages. Yeah. Because you really wanted to understand what the true substance was, behind each transaction, and that is where, UAE has actually led and improved, and I think significantly turned the way business was actually done in the UAE. Yeah. As a result of which, in February 2024, UAE was actually removed off the grey list of FATF. Yeah. So over the last, for the period of, let's say, 2 years, what has happened? It's remarkable, because not many countries have actually been able to achieve what UAE achieved within such a short span of time. Yeah. And I've actually seen all of that firsthand, because I knew exactly how business was done prior to being on the grey list in the UAE. Yeah. And then soon after that, how the entire economic economic landscape has actually shifted for the better.
Absolutely. And it's something, you and I have spoken before, that we think is going to continue and develop out here. And, it's something where compliance often gets a reputation for being bureaucratic and a bit restrictive. But how do you see compliance and the role of compliance adding value to business?
I think you've rightly said, compliance could be restrictive, and compliance is seen restrictive, especially if I was actually leading a transaction. I would want everything to go ASAP, as smoothly as possible, and not have anybody actually really question what I was doing, because at the end of the day, I want to achieve that bottom line for the business. But in terms of value addition for the business, compliance is and have to be bureaucratic. because a good controls process ensures that you have a robust KYC process. You basically have a robust onboarding process. You basically have a robust, sanctions check processes, etc. So once your compliance department does gets involved, it actually raises your profile with your counterparties, whoever that might be, whether that's the bankers, the brokers, the auditors, the regulatory authorities. They all want to know that one of the questions that a lot of brokers or regulatory bodies do ask as part of onboarding a new client is if you've actually whether got someone who predominantly focuses on compliance, if you have a compliance professional in-house, right? So this wasn't this never used to be there before 2022.
No.
And it wasn't even there in 2023, but in 2024 it's everywhere. So for a business, yes, it does add value because now you're actually seen and in a very different perspective. Otherwise, if you were just to answer no, then more increased scrutiny will probably have to be taking place on your account.
Yeah, absolutely.
That only delays the key milestones that you want to achieve as a business.
Yeah. And it's something that we definitely are forecasting as a hiring trend. Like you say, you've seen an increase in compliance, and we feel that people who have businesses from overseas who are entities here are actually still a bit behind on having their compliance out here, but we are seeing that as an absolute hiring trend for sure. And just going over this past 3 years, you've seen so much change, a great significant increase in regulations, in reporting. How would you say these changes have impacted the role of compliance?
Quite significantly. When you look at something which is actually increased, you actually feel that, oh my God, the role of compliance professionals can become really cumbersome and they're probably suffering. But in another way, it's actually opening up so many more opportunities.
Fantastic.
Because a compliance professional who understands the culture on the ground, whether that's Dubai, whether that's Abu Dhabi, and then who also understands the regulatory legislation or the regulatory environment of the two cities or the two emirates, it gives them a lot more edge. It's becoming more business central for compliance professionals to know exactly what the substance or what the nature of the business is. And they also have to be commercially minded, because now they actually have to think way in advance, just as and when a business stream is developing in an organization. It's not like accounting, whereby most of the events are kind of looking backwards.
Yeah.
Compliance have to be looking forwards. They have to be looking at the changing environment of each jurisdiction. They have to be they're more or less also managing the risk of an organization as and when a business evolves.
Yeah.
Right. So I've basically personally dealt with compliance queries from brokers, from bankers, from you as well. Yeah. Absolutely. And it's just kind of occurred to me that, wow, this landscape used to be so different 3 years ago.
I can imagine.
Just the whole nature of the queries that come in these days, it's just completely different. It's more matured, more advanced. And I think the whole industry and the economy is kind of moving towards the right direction, to compete at a more global stage with London, with New York, or with Geneva.
For sure. And, you're talking about the removal from the grey list and how that was really the significant point that you saw this evolution, if you want to call it, happening. Can you elaborate just a bit more about the impact of the UAE's removal?
So the removal of UAE from the FATF Grey List is definitely a contributor, but it's not the only contributor. Over the last 3 years or post-COVID, or even during COVID, the legislations that were being introduced by the UAE government, I believe that have all led as one after the other as a stepping stones for what we are seeing in the economic environment around us. Yes, the final, the final event of the removal of the grey list has certainly contributed massively to the whole reputation of the UAE as a financial services potential hub. And, you know, this I believe will only certainly keep growing, because if you just see from this week itself, Bloomberg has reported that there's been 1,000 people now dedicated only to hedge funds in the IFC.
Yeah.
We don't even have a number for ADGM, but it's probably more or equal to this, and it's growing day by day.
Absolutely.
The last 18 months or 22 months, you have seen the evolution of trading and shipping companies that have basically come in and established themselves. Some major players, some new starters, and just, you know, there's the constant everyday news that, oh, there's someone else just arrived. Specialized talents, welcome.
Yeah, thank you.
Know, back, Zoe. And this landscape is just completely turned 360 degrees over the last 24 odd months, right? So a huge impact on the UAE, on the economy and the industry.
And this is something that I've been saying to my clients is, they're like, do we need someone in compliance in Dubai? And I say, no, you don't legally have to, but I'm telling you, you need to get this sorted, because the talent pool isn't massive, right, here. It's not as vast as what we've got in London, for example. And I'm saying, listen, there are 100 funds established. You just said 1,000 portfolio managers are out here. We're talking 1,000 brokers coming. I'm like, the regulation is going to hot up. Compliance is going to sharpen itself out here, because it's just a matter of time. You know, I saw this in London 15 years ago when I became a broker. You just got signed off by HR that you were fit for the FCA and you were free to broke. And then in recent years, that's such a big change now. You've got broking desks and anyone in the financial body, like their compliance teams have trebled in volumes. We're now seeing rules and regs and fines. And I've seen that shift with my eyes in London. And I'm saying to everyone, it's going to happen in Dubai and Abu Dhabi. So, you know, for sure, I think, you know, it's come a long way, as you say, in the last few years. And I think we've got further to go, right? Now, I just wanted to ask, because I know you so much with compliance, but also, you know, you're a strong ambassador for sort of technology and AI. And I just wanted to sort of have an understanding on how you see technology playing a role in adapting these changes and advances out here.
Great question, Zoe. Technology any day. I'm always on the lookout for solutions that could simplify finance, that could simplify compliance, that could simplify reporting. And one of the recent changes that we've basically seen, and this is first-hand experience, that artificial intelligence, machine learning, or predictive analytics has really thrown out effectiveness within the whole compliance regime in organizations by way of transaction monitoring. And this is me as a you know, talking completely from a commercial point of view, not from a regulatory point of view, or not from a you know, from a perspective of a body that implements compliance, right? I'm basically just making sure that I comply, my organizations comply. However, the technology on the other side of the coin is probably through the roof at the moment, because sometimes I actually wonder the kind of queries that come back from the counterparties. And I think to myself, how the hell did you actually get hold of that information? I mean, it wasn't even on top of my head, but you know, there's technology today available for the banks, for the financial services sector, that could run a lot more thorough checks. So absolutely, RegTech or regulatory technology, 100% is evolving, and I think it will continue to evolve and make the whole system a lot more robust for the professionals.
And also more of a seamless, faster process sometimes, right? Because I remember sometimes when we were onboarding clients, and the process can be a bit of a teething one. So it'd be good to see, you know, maybe technology advancements.
Look, anything that, when it comes to compliance, you just know that there are going to be teething issues. Yeah, right? Absolutely. You just get that feeling in your heart. Yeah, you just get your heart says it. All right, now it begins.
Yeah,
and then there's a whole trail of emails that just keeps coming one after the other. But I hope that there's more adoption. I think another issue is also early adoption of technology.
Right. Yeah.
So yes, I mean, I think as someone who is, imposing or implementing and regulating, for them it's a no-brainer.
Yeah.
But
sure.
for an organization, there's always a cost versus benefit analysis. I mean, is my compliance better off doing Google searches, or can I actually get them a subscription for a database where they can basically run more thorough checks with automated alerts, etc., that could trigger any future, alarm against a counterparty?
Another business for you, maybe.
Why not? Bring it on.
And earlier, I just thought here, I was talking about how, in particularly because my experience is London, we have seen fines coming out, penalties, and definitely an increase in enforcement. But have you noticed an increase in enforcement and penalties related to compliance violations in the UAE?
100%.
Oh, wow. Okay.
100%. And it also depends, because each player gets penalized differently. If you're a financial services organization or a bank, you're basically going to be penalized by the Central Bank of UAE, and there's plenty of articles out there every now and again, whereby either the banks or exchange companies or brokers do get penalized, who are basically regulated by the Central Bank of UAE. Other than that, you've got brokers or traders who would basically get penalized or blacklisted or accounts being closed by the regulatory bodies or the free zone jurisdictions or the banks and the brokers. So as a result of non-compliance and non-adherence and lack of transparency in terms of what your business is really doing, the substance or form really has taken a different face over the last couple of years. So
So, I mean, as we've been saying for some time, I've been saying, I don't know when this wave is going to come where all my clients are suddenly going to be like, I need compliance now and here. But obviously, getting the right staff here in the first place who actually know what they're talking about is probably can save, businesses. I don't know what these penalties and sort of are in sort of numbers, but I think it's just something that people really need to sort of look into, right, to save themselves.
100%. I mean, another thing, I mean, when you compare it to London, you've got FCA that basically regulates the entire country. You've got different regulators in different jurisdictions in UAE. So so DFSA isn't going to really kind of impose a fine on someone registered as a broker in the MCC. So that's also when companies do get it slightly mixed up, because yes, you could be doing the right thing, you've got all the right licenses, but you just didn't really think of which jurisdiction you should really be operating out of.
Okay.
Whether should that be DMCC?
So just to be clear for people listening in, and maybe they haven't even looked to the UAE to have an entity yet, depending on where you set up, if that's DMCC, DIFC, there are different rules and regulations.
Totally.
Wow. Okay.
Totally.
Yeah, because we have some clients and they are broker. A lot of our clients are brokers, and they are unsure on where they need to be setting up their entities. Yeah. And we know a lot of funds, they have to be set up.
Fair enough.
In DIFC.
In DIFC, and some of them have to be regulated by the DFSA. Just being set up in DIFC doesn't really mean or mandate that you have to basically be regulated.
Okay.
Right. So there is different categories from the DFSA in terms of what level of regulation will basically apply to your operations. Yeah. So organizations who are looking at entering into the UAE must study thoroughly, in terms of what jurisdictions, what operations they basically want to carry out, and what is the best jurisdiction within the UAE free zones that would allow them to carry out those business operations seamlessly with the least level of hassle.
I'm sure we could do a whole podcast on the different rules and regs of the jurisdiction if it's Abu Dhabi. But if anyone listening does, want to know a bit more information about where their entity would be set up, please, we'll link all stuff below at the end, so you can contact us to learn a bit more. Obviously, freight and commodities is something you and I are both heavily involved in. And there are, like myself, I have an entity in London, I have an entity here. We've got clients with entities in Singapore and Geneva. I mean, the States, they've got many global entities. And, you know, but when it comes to cross-border transactions, that's something that I've actually had to look at myself, because it's something I'm learning about, right? I've got a new entity here and I've got to learn. So if you could just go through what are some of the key challenges are in ensuring compliance when it comes to cross-border transactions.
I can talk from my personal experience here, Zoe. Cross-border transactions has become a challenge. And I think it will only continue to be a challenge for organizations that are trading internationally, especially within a specific industry, which obviously, you know, we belong to. Now, there are ways in terms of how you could get ahead of the game. I mean, a lot of the times compliance does get involved, and this is about the internal awareness of organizations, right? So because certain documents or certain ways of doing things or certain declarations might actually be suffice for a jurisdiction but not actually work for another one.
Right. Yeah.
And this is where your awareness of your commercial teams, your compliance team together, you know, have to be sort of ahead of the game and liaise with your counterparties, understand what the requirements are going to be to facilitate these transactions way before that transaction is really executed.
Yeah.
Because there have been plenty of times whereby a transaction has been executed and now nobody knows where it is.
Oh, wow. Okay.
The counterparty says, we paid it 3 days ago, here's your SWIFT, and your banker cannot trace it because it's just there somewhere in the system. Some compliance has basically blocked it because they just weren't really sure what this relates to.
Absolutely.
And then it triggers a series of Q&As. I mean, it used to happen to me all the time when I would just send a small, you know, amount back to London.
Yeah.
This was pre removal from the FATF list.
Yeah.
And each and every time, the banks in the UK would just block it, and they just needed more information. How do you get this money? Why are you sending it? You know, prove it. And it's a bank that I've been using for over 20 years. Wow. I say to them, this is the same kind of rhythm that you see in my accounts, but no, they need.
And there's still a lot of issues around this. We're still getting these.
Yes, absolutely. Okay. And I think it's only going to continue because a lot of the times the substance of the transaction is different from its form. And this is where also technology plays a part, because if the systems are automated, so despite your relationship within the organization and the bank or the broker might know what this is for, the system doesn't know. So it just keeps flagging it.
Oh, wow.
I mean, it happens all the time.
Yeah, so be prepared.
Absolutely. So be prepared. Your compliance need to really know the business. They really need to know what's coming. And the more you liaise and keep people informed in the chain, the swift, you know, it becomes to execute.
Okay.
Yeah.
That's good advice. I'll note to that.
You're welcome.
So we've said that we've seen so much growth in the last few years. We're forecasting a trend here of a lot of people coming and more compliance staff, because we see this road still developing. It's come a long way, but a long way to go. So just looking ahead, what do you see as the future of compliance in the UAE? Have you seen any emerging trends and any major challenges that you think businesses should be sort of keeping an eye out for?
I think going forward, I mean, yes, we've witnessed a lot, but I personally feel that the maturity is only starting to settle. And as the economy becomes more mature, they will become more stringent in terms of how much regulation they basically want in place. Because once you've attained a certain level of reputation internationally, and with UAE, I mean, once you get to a point, they only want to go higher and higher from that point onwards, right? Yeah. So personally, I think this is going to grow. Compliance and regulations are going to indeed keep on evolving. Yeah. And for the time being, you're only seeing the transformation and the growth across Abu Dhabi and Dubai. There's 7 Emirates. These are only 2.
Yeah,
So
for sure.
as and when space eventually runs out, or the cost of doing or cost of maintaining certain assets in these Emirates becomes, too high to justify, then maybe you would probably start looking at other Emirates, which is Sharjah or Ajman, and this spillover could possibly trigger those jurisdictions to enhance their own regulatory environment.
Yeah.
And a lot of these organizations will probably look at perhaps, shipping their back offices out to Sharjah or Ajman. I mean, if I was a business boss, I would certainly look at that.
Yeah.
Why would I want to pay for 5 floors in DIFC when I can basically have my portfolio managers and my traders based in DIFC and or DMCC, and a lot of my middle office and back office could operate more efficiently cost-wise out of Sharjah or Ajman.
Yeah. And it could be an interesting option for some people, right? And it's one that people don't consider. They look at the UAE, Abu Dhabi, Dubai, what are the main hubs?
Absolutely, because they've actually been at the forefront of the whole, PR.
Yeah, of course.
But then eventually other Emirates will probably catch up. I mean, Ras Al Khaimah, look at what's happening in Ras Al Khaimah. I mean, yes, the gaming industry being one of them, but wouldn't that mean that there would also be a lot more commercial activity that would probably also follow suit of the gaming industry? And the gaming industry in itself requires a lot of regulation.
Absolutely.
Right? So the supporting industries of the gaming industry will probably go down there. And as a result, if that emirate grows, then certainly there will be a lot more activity in and around there as well, right? So I personally think that this is just a start, and it is only going to get more stringent, and more scrutiny will basically have to be placed, will have to be put in place to be able to maintain that reputation now.
Absolutely. And then, how in the UK we have the FCA, and that's one body for all locations, all areas. Do you think this will happen here in the UAE, that there will be one major body in which all the rules and regs are then in place for DIFC and DMCC? Is that something you think will happen, or?
Interesting question. I look, there are federal bodies that do regulate certain activities, especially the Emirates Securities and Commodities Authority, right? However, when it comes to free zones, they have deliberately kept the free zones activities out of the scope of a lot of the federal laws that apply to mainlands. Okay. So having a universal body to oversee all of the activities across all jurisdictions, I think it will be one hell of a task.
Yeah, for sure.
To achieve.
I can imagine. Yeah.
But then that could also spook a lot of the companies and organizations who've already set up and have now become, comfortable with the way of doing business in certain jurisdictions, whether that's TIFC or whether that's ADGM or whether that's, Raquez and Ras Al Khaimah. So I would doubt, because why I say that is in contrast when I look at the whole tax regime that's been implemented.
Yeah.
So there's rules for certain industries. If you operate the same industry, the same operations in mainland, or if you operate the same activities out of a free zone, different tax rules apply.
Okay.
So having a universal body overseeing everything, I very much doubt this is coming.
No. Okay.
Yeah.
Let's just ask. Compliance can be complex. It can be costly. What sort of would you say the key challenges for businesses that they're going to face meeting compliance requirements?
Compliance is costly either way you look at it.
Yeah.
Right? Whether you do comply or whether you choose not to comply.
Yeah.
If you comply, you're basically going to spend relatively smaller costs in manning up and putting in the right systems in place and processes. If you choose not to comply, you're basically going to be paying by the loss of business and reputation and lack of your ability to be able to get onboarded with reputational with A-list or blue chip counterparties.
Right.
So either way, there is a cost involved. It depends what you value more.
Yeah,
right?
For sure.
Yeah.
Absolutely. And, I mentioned this earlier, how I've been saying to you for some time, I feel like this wave of influx is I've got clients in lots of talks about it, you know, and a lot of them have opted to have their main compliance run out of Singapore or London or their head office that's not here. And I've been firmly saying, I think you need to have someone here. But how are you, how are clients that you speak with and deal with, how are they perceiving the role of compliance? And do you feel they're becoming more aware or, you know, less of its importance?
The clients that I've actually been speaking to and the business counterparts that we speak to or look at, the awareness is definitely grown.
Yeah.
I mean, the last 3 years have been significant in terms of how much business owners and traders or, you know, organizations in a whole perceive the value that compliance brings to the table.
Yeah.
So, I mean, I've seen startup organizations already earmarking a role for GRC.
Wow. Okay.
Right? KYC officers, compliance officers, already, even before they've actually started trading.
Yeah.
The established players are, you know, on a lookout. If they haven't brought someone on board already, the plan is already there in place.
Sure.
However, as you also said, the lack of availability of compliance professionals who understand.
That's
Absolutely.
the thing. We've mapped a lot and we've seen the talent that's out here.
Yeah.
And those who actually understand shipping, commodities, derivatives is quite thin.
Totally.
So it's a little bit between a rock and a hard place because you've got experts in their entities, but they don't understand fully the UAE law, per jurisdiction. So it's something that I definitely think we will see a shift on. But it's something that I say to people all the time, like there are these candidates out here who do know, but they're not many.
There are not many.
So
Absolutely. Yeah. I mean, a lot of another thing I've also experienced, and this is personally as well, whereby a lot of these, some organizations embed that with the financial controller.
Yeah.
Right. Of course, you deal with the banks, you deal with the auditors, you can deal with compliance, but that's not really a finance role because because there could be a bit of a conflict of interest there. Compliance needs to be independent of any other department in an organization.
Yeah.
Right? Because I mean, you don't want anybody to influence your assessment of a KYC process of a counterparty.
No,
I don't want to onboard a friend of someone, you know, who is friends with the finance or with business development, for example. So you need to look at it as a internal audit organization, which is completely independent, and perhaps even the reporting lines are different because this is a risk mitigation department. Yeah. Right.
Amazing. Yeah. So it's definitely stuff for people to sort of take note, and really, I think if they are listening to this, just something to really reflect on and maybe have some internal talks because we do feel that Funds are a hot topic in commodity space at the moment. We're seeing more and more coming in. We've seen more coming into Dubai. It's a subject that, you know, we didn't start off dealing with funds, but now they are slowly on our radar. We're dealing with them. They're coming to us for our commodity talent pool. We've seen, or you were telling me recently that you've seen changes in the regulations for the funds, and that's by the Emirates Securities and Commodities Authority, and that's impacted the role of compliance within the funds. Can you just go into a bit more details on how that's affecting the industry?
So, I mean, yes, funds is a hot topic. I mean, every other day you've got an article coming out of Bloomberg that if you've got this fund or that fund, whether that's a hedge fund, whether that's a family office fund, whether that's some investment fund or asset management manager. Now, over the last couple of years, precisely, I think early 2023, the ESCA brought out a regulation that foreign funds cannot promote their investment portfolios to the investors of the UAE, which is the step in the right direction because there's a ton of horror stories whereby someone's basically sold a bogus fund or investment plan, right? So, and this is where you're talking about institutional investors. You're not talking sort of little money. So a lot of these foreign funds now have to have a locally licensed and regulated promoter or perhaps a feeder fund
Okay.
through which they can promote their investments to the investors of the UAE.
Okay.
Just like that, plain and simple. But then, as a result of this, now you've got to onboard the clients locally in the UAE.
Yeah.
And you've got to go through the whole process of KYCing your clients, establishing the source of funds and everything that your London office or a Mauritius office or an offshore jurisdiction used to perhaps be doing previously.
Yeah.
Now all has to be done. Locally. Yes, you could still get your offshore back office or compliance office to get it done, but would they really know how business is done or understand the culture of investors in the UAE? And that's probably why that also explains why all these funds are now entering into the UAE market, so that they obviously get the first-hand feel of how it is to do business, and how then they could raise the funds that they're looking or targeting on raising.
Yeah. So, and when did this come into play? Is this in force now?
It is in force now. Yes. So it was actually implemented in February of 2023. There's been a change. They started off in 2019. I think it basically took a bit of a backseat through COVID, but has been in full force since 2023. And then you've got the whole removal of UAE from the FATF Grey List. So that kind of amplified and contributed to raising that, or enabling that market entry for a lot of the players who are otherwise thinking on the, or sitting on the fence, thinking whether do we enter or do we not enter, because for some of these organizations, it's a matter of reputation as well. You don't really want to be going into a market which is actually on a Financial Actions Task Force Grey List and be raising funds there.
Exactly. I think a lot of people go, oh, okay, we'll go and we'll set up out here, but that's the way it used to be, quite simple, and now it really isn't. And you have to absolutely have all your ducks in a row.
Totally. Yes.
So, if anyone does, again, need some advice, they're looking to set up, they have set up, they're unsure if they've set up in the right regions and entity setups and the right jurisdictions, and obviously, please reach out to myself. So I've asked you so many questions because there were so many things I've been asked about, and me myself, at the end of the day, I used to be a broker, so I've got experience with it firsthand. I'm now a recruiter, a headhunter, so it's a lot of grey for me, and I'm just coming to you often about the feedback from what I'm getting asked on a regular basis. But I didn't know if you had any questions for me at all, or
if you now, you've already mentioned the recruiter and the headhunter, and I'm sure a lot of the listeners will really be keen on understanding how your experience has actually been since you've actually moved into Dubai, and what's the general consensus of the UAE job market in the freight and commodity industry.
Yeah. So we've definitely noticed some new trends. We saw 1,000, like I said earlier, we're anticipating 1,000 brokers to be relocated here. And a lot of people have sent brokers who are already in their entity in the UK or Singapore, and they've sent them out here. Now, off the back of that, they've sent out, let's say, the main front of house. Increase in operations is a big one we've seen. And they don't want someone, because I don't want to say it's a lower paid job, but it kind of is. And it's something that, it's quite costly to relocate, relocation fees, flights home. So I'm actually getting quite a lot of demand for people who want operations support staff who are here. That's a big one. Applications to Dubai. On LinkedIn, if a job goes up to relocate to Dubai, they can apply from, don't already have to be living here. Some job applications, we're getting about 1,000 within 1,000 job applications, I would say, can sometimes be an hour, but like within 14 hours. Like the demand to get out here is bigger than we've ever seen.
And that could be any job.
And that's any job, any job. And I think social media actually has a big play in this. People relocate, they, show off their kind of nice work-life balance. The weekends are with the children. People are obviously sharing about how nice the lifestyle is. It's so safe here, like safety, Singapore is very safe, and people love that about Singapore, but, rent can be quite expensive there. But Dubai offers a great solution. center of the earth. You can get out to Europe very easily. You can get to Singapore and Asia very easily, and you've got that safety. I mean, as a woman, I feel safe to walk around, and I think I share that with people, and then they go, oh, if you've got anything in Dubai, I would love to know. We have some candidates who have previously said, I don't want to relocate, are now coming to us and saying, is there anything in Dubai? And I'm like, you said 6 months ago you didn't want to move here. And they're like, no, I just want to get out. So yeah, we've just seen a big wave, I think across the board, but in shipping and commodities, we are seeing some new entities being set up here. Now they have come from the larger interdealer brokers, and they've come out here and they've set up on their own. We are seeing more and more of that happening. I'm just trying to think of some other things that we've seen in terms of definitely people wanting support staff. A lot of companies do relocate their own talent. We forecast compliance. We've been saying it for ages, but we definitely are forecasting, I would say early 25, that call to go off, because they're sending so many brokers here. Yeah. And they're going to need the support staff.
Because eventually that volume, when it starts coming in,
yeah,
the UK staff will start getting buried in.
Absolutely.
So how are they going to support the whole onboarding and supporting the front of house staff? So
yeah,
yes,
and they need
absolutely.
still to support the ones in the UK. So you've got a lot of desks that are splitting, right? So like not all, let's say, I don't know, you've got an LNG desk. Yeah. Not everybody can just pack up their stuff and go. Their partner may have a career and their children may be at really vital ages, whether at secondary school. So all of a sudden you've got these split teams and they can't take both of their support, so that, I think we were going to see a split there. Compliance, legal as well, head of legal, we get quite a few recently from people already out here, requirements for that for sure. And the other things I've noticed since I've been in Dubai is just doing business here is very nice.
Interesting you say that, actually. Okay.
Okay, so I don't know, just people are quite happy to meet. There's a big expat community, so you don't have your friends and family around you. And, I think people feel that. So if someone reaches out to me and says, do you want to go for coffee? Do you want to meet? If I get the time to do it, I really want to come and see people face to face. And it's quite nice to do it. The mood is pretty high energy here.
That's true.
Positivity. True. It's sunny every day. People aren't moaning about the tube, and I just find people generally
people are moaning about the traffic now. It is going crazy on the roads these days, Zoe.
Oh, the roads! Yes. I feel like I'm in a scene from Mario Kart. I'm just going along and someone's turning. It's like the exit, and they're in the fast lane, and they just come straight across, not worried, not indicating. They're straight out, and I'm like
crossing 5 lanes to the right, no issues.
For sure. Yeah. And the other thing, I feel like. I was talking to a girl the other day and she said she was quite surprised when she relocated here that the front of house roles, so if you're looking at traders, portfolio managers, brokers, that's within our sector, there wasn't as many women. And I was a bit like, really? And she said, no, it's more dominated here than London. I was like, oh God, I've been working on this for London for years. I'm now going to have to do a lot of work here. But what I will say to anyone who's sort of coming out here, there are fantastic schools, nurseries, nannies are fantastic here, and there is some discussion around ethics with their pay, but pay ethically, that's what I've done. You don't have to abuse that system, but of course, yeah. It's a fantastic place for a working parent. For me, it's been brilliant. I can go for a pool day or a beach day with my client and his family. You get to build the relationship in that expat family ethos, if you want to call it like that. Totally. So, and there's also the support here. At the moment, I'm here with you. I'm a single parent out in Dubai. My daughter's with her nanny. She's been well taken care of. So I do feel that this is a fantastic place for women. You're going to be safe. It's just, and I think that's something that hasn't really been touched on as much because there's this old sort of, I don't want to call it stereotype that the way it is in the Arabic world,
the way the region is perceived.
Yes, exactly. That women are second class citizens. No, I am so respected out here. I'm so valued out here. Yes. I'm treated with respect, honor. I've never known a negative situation, and even more so, in terms of boundaries and And yeah, I think it's just like so safe, and the the preconception is actually wrong, very wrong. And so if you are, a female broker or trader, I think Dubai is like the best place to raise a family, or even be here as an independent, single woman, for sure.
And learn.
Yeah.
There's a lot of learning opportunity as well, I guess, because the growth, I mean, I'm saying I'm monitored the London markets as well.
Yeah.
But then comparatively to how professionals actually really grow in Dubai is just different. I mean,
Absolutely.
Yes. I mean, if you work hard, the recognition comes a lot quicker.
Absolutely.
Right. I mean, I've grown my career, I think, twice as fast than I would have otherwise in London.
For sure.
Right? So yeah.
If I could show you my inbox on LinkedIn since I landed in Dubai, I had to get my assistant Rose to literally say, you need to filter it down a bit, because we can't, honestly, and that's not me being cocky, but just the inbound like messaging coming through, either people wanting to relocate, like what's the experience out here, how do they get set up, that they're relocating themselves, can we meet for coffees, are we looking to hire? It's crazy. But you don't, in London, it's just, I just can't like explain how different it is. But the opportunities here are...
It's business as usual in London, whereas at the moment Dubai is currently going through a phase of rapid growth.
Yes,
I certainly believe that. You feel it. You feel it
on the
streets.
Every time I meet someone's got an idea about something, and everyone's quite entrepreneurial. Yeah. And I even had someone say to me, Zoe, would you be interested in running a construction company? And I said, pardon? Shipping commodities, right? They're like, yeah, we just need someone in Dubai. And I said, okay, I don't think that's my bag. But, I think that there really is that vibe here. Yeah. And also it's the stop point for a lot of other destinations. So a lot of people, what they're doing is, and I don't know, Emirates Airline may hate me, but I'm sure people know, is you can extend your stop, your layover. So you pay, let's say, for a ticket to Singapore. You can land in Dubai and extend that, without paying for 2 travel fares, you can extend your stay. And I've got so many clients who message you, they're literally in Dubai, this restaurant, 8 o'clock. And I'm like, oh, okay, yeah, sure, I'll see you there. But again, it's a great stopping ground. So people here are stopping. They're here for a few days. They want to meet. It's really, really fantastic. So
Dubai really does mean business. I mean, I've actually witnessed once that one of my colleagues actually had to meet someone at the airport whilst they were in transit.
Oh wow! Yeah.
They were like, you know what? I'm stopping. I start stopping over in Dubai airport. I don't want to do step out. I want to just come and we can just meet up in the airport. So you even got business happening in the airports. But one fact check, I mean, social media, the way they portray Dubai, absolutely. But the work-life balance, I mean, having actually worked here for almost 10 years, you do work hard, but play harder.
Absolutely.
But so it's not always, the grass is not always greener.
No.
As
some things are a lot more expensive than you.
Absolutely. So I'm actually gonna sort of as a risk ambassador as well, I'm actually going to raise this flag to the listeners that yes, the grass is not always greener. The social media does paint a very rosy picture, but you do have to really work twice as hard to create your space
for sure.
in the industry. And once you're there, then things start to change.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Okay, amazing. So we're going to wrap up now.
Thank you, Zoe.
Our first ever podcast. We hope that people who are listening in enjoyed it. If you have any questions about regulation, where to set up, you already have an entity here, but you have, anything at all, just reach out. And obviously we'll link everything in the video below. But thank you for listening. And thank you so much, our first ever guest.
Thank you so very much for inviting me over.
And being brave enough.
Well, I was actually getting a bit of a cold feet, actually. You're really the first guest on Factor episodes of the podcast episodes. So yeah, do you know what? I hope we've covered a lot and the listeners will benefit.
No, I hope it answers a lot of questions for people, and it definitely has for me. So thank you.
Thank you very much, Zoe.
Thank you.